Hi everyone, welcome back again. Now if you followed the channel before or you subscribed, thank you very much by the way if you subscribed, you've probably cottoned on by now that I am partial to a Keytar shred or two. Well, a lot of you guys have got in touch and asked me about my rig. So in this video, I'm going to give you a rig rundown of my Keytar setup and how I use it with Gig Performer. So the video is going to be in two sections. The first section will be all about the hardware and how I connect everything up. And in the second section, I'll show you how I use the Gig Performer software to run all the VSTs and all the fancy things. Now, if you're a veteran Gig Performer user, I'm not going to be blazing any trails in this video, so this might not be the video for you. But if you're toying with the idea of that kind of software and you're thinking of popping your Gig Performer cherry, then watch on and well, you'll see how I use it. When it comes to Gig Performer, really the sky's the limit in terms of what you can do. If there's anything in your studio that you have VST wise that you want to take on the road, there's nothing really this program can't do, whether you're a vocalist or a guitarist or like me, keys player, drummer, whatever you can think of basically when it comes to stage use, it can do. Now, Brett Pontecorvo and the Gig Performer team have a wonderful website, community-based forum and YouTube channel. So go check all that stuff out. I'll leave some links down below so you can go at your own leisure and find out some more. Anyway, let's get on. Okay, so first I'll show you the hardware and then you'll see how I use Gig Performer to run it all. Here's the Keytar, obviously the main part of the rig. If I pick up the Keytar a second, you will see velcroed onto the Keytar a wireless Midi transmitter, which basically means I can run around the stage like an idiot without any wires connected. And the receiver for that is strapped onto my mixer. And then I have my little audio interface here, which is an M Audio M track. Super simple little thing, one big volume knob on the top, and you can see the outputs of that are running into a channel on my desk. And this little guy also has a 3-port USB hub, which is really handy for connecting all my gear. And it also means I only have one USB cable running over to my M1 MacBook Pro, which is running Gig Performer and some other gubbins. I'll show you a little bit more of the Keytar. If you're interested, there's chapters down below if you want to skip bits. This is an old 1990s retro fella, and in my opinion, still one of the best Keytars to perform with. You can let me know if you disagree down in the comments. It has 16 patch change buttons on it with a bank button, so you actually have 32 on the neck. A ribbon controller which controls pitch, kind of like if you bend a string on a guitar. Below that, a modulation bar. If you hold that down, it gives you vibrato. And on the back, you'll see a tiny little button there, and that's defaulted to sustain. But as with everything in Gig Performer, as you'll see shortly, you can assign anything to anything. Down on the floor, you'll see the Midi control pedal. So you have a range of foot switches. It's really handy actually. It's got a couple of expression port jacks and it can export MIDI through the 5-pin DIN, and it's got some extra foot switch ports at the back too. Really versatile little piece of kit, and it is actually really quite cheap and built like a tank. And yes, by the way, I am wearing pink Crocs. Don't knock it till you've tried it. A quick summary of the foot switches that I've got programmed right now. These three here are programmed with note on and off data, which means I can key switch in the Music Lab software to do various things with my guitar. This red button over here I've assigned to an on and off kind of control change, which I can assign to anything again in Gig Performer. I'll show you that shortly. These 5 here I've assigned with control change messages, and that gives me extra options later on if I want to control other things that I haven't thought about while I'm making up a patch. And this red button here, I'll show you that shortly when I fire up Gig Performer. Right, I've set everything up now on my desk so it's a little bit easier for you guys to see, and I think you've probably had enough croc action by now. So on the screen you can see if I scroll up and down with the cursor keys on my keyboard, it is scrolling up and down various sounds. And basically each one of these is called a Rackspace, which is where you can combine your VSTs, effects, etc. to set up whatever you like. So as I scroll, if I hit acoustic, down to that one there. You get the idea. Now, scrolling up and down on the keyboard is all well and good, but not so handy when you're running around the stage like a complete fool. You don't want to be rushing back to your computer keyboard every time you want to change the sound. So I've assigned these Rackspaces to the buttons on my Keytar. So if I press my Keytar, you can see that the Rackspaces change as well, which means I could completely control my Rackspaces remotely, wirelessly from 100 meters away if I have to. And speaking of patch changes, if you remember me highlighting this little red button earlier, I've assigned this switch with a program change message so that no matter what patch I'm on from the Keytar, if I hit that switch, it will jump me straight to my favorite lead guitar sound. So that I don't even have to look down at the Keytar to change anything. I can just hit that switch and I can go rocking out. So I joined the Gig Performer family in version 4.5. So I'm pretty much a newbie compared to some of the power users that have been using this for years. I mean, honestly, check out some of the things that they're doing with this. They're running synths, patches, guitar effects. They're communicating with iPads and other computers, sometimes in a different country, connecting up with Ableton because it has Ableton Link, running 4 controller keyboards at a time, sending a click track to the drummer, making the tea, and probably sending saucy emails to the bass guitarist's girlfriend, all at the same time. So my setup, like I said, is really simple right now, but it will give you a very basic idea of what it can do for me. This Rackspace here is probably my most complex patch yet. Now you can see on the front panel, really simple, a big huge volume knob, a title so I can actually see which Rackspace it is from afar, a big red button there, and when I press this red button here, that turns my wah switch on and off, and if I move my pedal, you can see that going up and down. So if I play something now, just very quickly, you can hear. Obviously, I'll be doing that with my foot, not my hand, because that's just daft. That's the front panel. If you hit the wiring button here, this takes you to the rear end of the Rackspace, and it shows you what's actually inside the Rackspace when it comes to your VSTs, etc. Now, I'll just run through this really quickly because this video has been going on too long already. This is your Midi in block. This is where Gig Performer is listening for any MIDI information that's coming in. And you can set this to Omni, so it's listening to every single piece of MIDI hardware that I have. And then you connect it to, well, for me, it's always a guitar because I use the Keytar just for guitar sounds. So in this patch, I have Real Strat, and I've set it up with just a very clean tone. Music Lab's V6 does have their own amplifier section now, which is super cool. But for this particular patch, I wanted a little bit of extra. So that's the first source of audio. It's then connected via 2 cables straight into my wah pedal, as you can see here. Now, like I said earlier, if I press this red button, you can see that red button on the effector pedal turning on and off. And when I move the pedal, you can see the pedal position dial going up and down, which gives you that wah sound. The signal flow then goes from the wah pedal into Amplitude 5, which is a third-party amp simulator. You guitarists will probably know all about this. And I'm just using one of the presets that I've kind of fiddled around with. This thing is immense in terms of options, and you can spend days lost in here setting up things. I tend to use a preset and just fiddle around with little bits and bobs. But yeah, an immense piece of software. So after that, the signal flow runs again with these 2 little virtual cables into one of Gig Performer's own widgets called Gain and Balance, which does what it says on the tin basically. You can control gain and balance from your signal source with this. So at the end of the chain here, I have this gain fader assigned to the volume knob of my Keytar. You can see that going up and down as I move the controller on my Keytar. So that gives you a quick glimpse of what I'm doing there. What I thought I would do is create a brand new Rackspace with a brand new guitar, so you can kind of see my workflow as I create a Rackspace, and it will show you kind of how easy it is. So if I go and choose new Rackspace, and I'll just call it demo. There we go, a brand new Rackspace, absolutely nothing in it. And if I click the wiring section there, there's absolutely nothing going on here either. So first thing to do, right click, and I'm going to add another guitar sound a Les Paul this time. Now if I play something, nothing's happening because nothing's connected up yet at all. This is just sitting here in empty space. So if I physically connect that block to the input of that block and play, you can see now that the VST is picking up my note data there. Still no sound yet because the output of the VST isn't going anywhere at all. I think I'll choose another instance of amplitude. Here we are. We'll just leave that straight to default for now. If I hold shift and drag cables, it will automatically put the two in for me without having to drag individually, which is a good time saver. Now I could go straight into the outputs here. I'm going to do it one at a time so you can see. This is so relaxing putting these cables in. Now I'm getting a sound. But personally, I prefer to have this gain and widget control always at the end so that I can control overall volume of that patch. Now if I hold shift and drag that gain and balance in, it'll automatically snap that in there like that. I'll just choose something really random right now. There is a Brian May setup. Yeah, love it. Anyway, so now I've got sound. But I have no control yet. Apart from pitch bend and modulation from the Keytar going straight into Music Labs, I've got no control over volume or anything else. So we need to add a few controls at the front end of the Rackspace so that we can see what we're doing and control a few things. So hit the Edit tab. I want a volume control, obviously, and I'm going to go 11 because you have to, really, don't you? I'm going to make that big and large again so that it's easy to see on stage. For the sake of quickness, I'm going to add a piece of tape. This is genius again, by the way. I'm going to make it a bit bigger and I'll just call it guitar demo. So down in the bottom here you can see customized caption. If I put guitar demo, it comes up there. Really small though, so change the font size and make it kind of big. There we go, so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to add an expression pedal also. Make that nice and big. So there's a volume control and an expression pedal. Really simple. But they're not doing anything yet because they're not assigned to anything and they're just sitting there having no clue what to do. There's two stages really. You first of all assign the widgets to your controller and then you tell that. There's two very quick stages to get this working. First of all, you assign these two widgets to a controller in your setup. This one here is going to be volume, obviously. This one's going to be something else. I'll show you in a minute. So to assign volume here, I'm going to use obviously the knob on my Keytar. So you go down to Midi here and learn. Gig Performer is now waiting for some sort of signal from one of your controllers. Now if I turn, now you can see it's already picked up that. If I now click on the expression pedal, click learn, and move the expression pedal, it picks up that controller too. So now at least the widgets are listening to my hardware, but they still are not assigned anything. So to assign the volume control knob there, I'm going to point that over to the plugin window here and choose gain and balance and then click on gain. If I go back to the wiring tab here and open gain and balance, as soon as I move my Keytar knob, it's moving the gain and balance. So there's basically two stages to setting up a widget. By the way, this is all covered very comprehensively in the Gig Performer YouTube channel with Brett and the guys. I want to assign this expression pedal widget to something different like a reverb. So if I head down to this bottom right where it says mapping here again and choose amplitude 5, click the learn parameter button. That's setting up Gig Performer to listen to what parameter I'm going to set up. Now I want to control the digital reverb in this chain here. So if I right click here and assign this knob a parameter, which it already is set to actually, you can already see that when I turn that knob, the expression pedal is moving up and down remotely, which tells me that those two are now linked. Now if I turn off the learn parameter and play, ta-da! Really quick, right? So that gives you a little behind the scenes look at how I use Gig Performer with my Keytar on stage. Right, well if you've stayed with me right to the end, Well done, you're a real trooper. A good few of you now have asked about my setup, so I thought I'd do a little video for you. If you're toying with the idea of using some of your VSTs on stage and have never done it before, honestly I would urge you to go over to the Gig Performer website and try it out. I'm sure there's a free trial there. Join up with the community forum. All the users there are super helpful, and more often than not you'll get the heads of the company replying directly to you, giving you all the advice that you'll ever need. I can't imagine ringing Apple and going, excuse me dude, I've got a problem with main. Until next time.